Welcome, everybody, to the circus that has been, it's been crazy this week. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. Welcome to GTL, Games Talk Live here. Got a great guest for you. I'm going to turn that music down just a little bit because it's in my ears and it's really loud. Anyways, this show is not going to be about a circus here. We're going to talk about the stuff that's been going on lately, especially the Phil Spencer interview, which a lot of people have just misinterpreted, spun, clickbaited all to hell and back. We're going to be talking about that stuff, as well as Redfall and other AAA games that are coming out just busted. And it's not a good thing, folks. So anyway, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you. I have the Big Plume here, which you guys know him as Plume Network here on YouTube, but he's the Big Plume on Twitter. Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Happy to be back. It has been a circus this week. It's been a crazy week. I've tried to kind of cool the circus down a little bit with some of my videos. I don't know how well it's working, but I'm excited to talk about it.
You did a great job on your video explaining what Phil was talking about. I mean, excellent job. Even pointing at other, going back to other interviews, going back to other articles written. And some of these articles, what's funny is, are written in total, they're just contradicting to what some people are trying to spin Phil saying now. But some of these articles are written by publications that are trying to spin it themselves now as well, which is freaking weird. Like, I don't know what it is about. I've said this a lot, guys, in the community. And I know there's people out there who will spin it for clickbait and, all that stuff. But there's a lot of people in this community. No offense to some of you. Some of you are very intelligent. My audience here is usually very intelligent. But there's a lot of people that lack basic comprehension skills. I say that a lot. And it's like, when you listen to everything in context and understand what's been going on at Xbox, I don't see how people get it wrong. But we're not going to talk about that just yet. We're going to talk about other things right now. First of all, I want to know what you've been up to, Plume. What have you been playing? What have you been doing lately?
Well, I've been playing everyone's favorite game so far this year, which is Redfall. I've been trying to play a decent amount of it so I can give my true thoughts on the game itself, rather than just kind of reading all the reviews and all the outrage about it. And I've been continuously going back and jumping into Hogwarts Legacy and just trying to finish up that game, because it's an incredible game. The world building, everything you can do in that game is just awesome. That's pretty much been it. So those are the two games I've been jumping into. Other than that, just making videos, talking about gaming, and having a good time.
Yeah, you haven't beat Hogwarts, huh? Wow. I loved that game. It was honestly probably, it's still probably my game of the year right now. There's Wolong is in contention for me as well, because I loved Wolong. I've said it before, best Game Pass game I've played. I love that game. I think it's great. Team Ninja, Koei Tecmo did an amazing job with that game. So I'm very excited for them on that one. Let me get to a couple of these super chats, because there were some super chats before the show started, and I don't want them to disappear. I've got a member for 3 months from Risk It for the Biscuit. He says he's boarding a plane, so he'll catch the show on demand, unless it's more than an hour, which it could be the case. He says, see you soon. He also has one that says, and I can't bring this up. He says, if anyone is calling Phil's head over Redfall, it shows that they have very poor understanding of the video game industry and of corporate structure. 100% spot on with that. And I'm going to get more into detail with that later. The whole, let's fire Phil type of talk. It's nonsense for various reasons. And I'm sure you've got some reasons too as well, Plume, but it's utter ridiculousness right now. And I've got a super chat here that I can bring up from Brigadier's Blue. Thank you very much. $10 super chat here. Thank you very much, Brigadier's Blue. Every week he's excited for another episode of GTL. Sorry to hear that you've had a rough week, man. Hopefully things improve for you and your family. Much love, brother. Yeah, I've had a rough night, people. Excuse me. Again, I hate saying this, but excuse me if I'm scatterbrained today, but I had to take my parents to the hospital last night was in the emergency room for hours. I didn't get home till almost 6 a.m. this morning. So anyways, I'm here. I'm here to do the show. I've slept a few hours. And of course, I want to get into the rest of the show. Plume, let's go ahead and do something that I like to do here. And of course, let's play a little game. And that's 5 questions.
5 questions.
All right. 5 questions. 4 trivia, 1 subjective question, that you could still get wrong because I have the power to do that as host. But let's go ahead and get into this because a lot of people like playing 5 questions in the chat as well. Play along, folks, but don't look at the chat, Plume. Don't look at the chat. Don't cheat.
I'll try to do as good as I did last time, but I don't know if I'll be able to.
All right. Well, I've got some easy ones in here. I didn't have much time to really get well, anyways, let's just go ahead. Number 1. How many playable characters are in Redfall, and can you name 1? It's a 2-parter.
There's 4 playable characters in Remy. There's Jacob.
Hey, you named 1. You named 1. You did good. You did good there. He actually played the game, people. He actually played the game. Some people didn't. They just wrote it off because of reviews and said, the game sucks. Not playing it, and, whatever. I tried it as well, and I'll talk about that later. Who is the current CEO at Activision Blizzard?
Bobby Kotick.
Correct. That one's easy. It's easy.
Give me the easy ones here.
Yeah, it might have been too easy for you, man. We're all familiar with Fallout, the whole Fallout franchise, especially Fallout 3 and 4, developed by Bethesda. And New Vegas was developed by Obsidian, of course. But can you tell me who the developers were that made the very first and second Fallout games?
Ooh.
This is a tough one.
I don't know. I'm just going to say Bethesda. I don't know. I don't know this one.
Black Isle Studios.
Black Isle Studios. Wow.
Black Isle Studios. Okay. They were owned by Interplay, and Interplay closed them back in 2004. And that's when Bethesda took over.
I've never heard of Black Isle Studios. That's
Black Isle Studios. All right, here's another Fallout question. In Fallout 4, he was the robot who's been waiting for you to come home for 200 years. Who is this robot?
What's his name? Mr. something. Mr. Hand?
Codsworth. The robot that you come home to. And he's sitting there in the living room and he's waiting for you.
Oh, okay.
It's Codsworth. Number 5. Music can go off. This is the subjective question. Fallout series or Elder Scrolls series? What do you like better and why?
I like Elder Scrolls better. I like the fantasy aspects. I loved Skyrim. I loved the open world there and how just expansive that was. And it's just, there's so much nostalgia for the Elder Scrolls series, especially Morrowind with the OG Xbox, where like I didn't play it right away when it first came out, but I played it later. But I remember just being in awe going over to my friend's house who had Morrowind and never seen a game like that on console before. So it's got to be Elder Scrolls for me.
I'll accept that. I like that answer. I love both. I have a fondness for both. If I had to choose one over the other, and it's really hard for me, it might be Elder Scrolls as well. I think because as a whole, I think the Elder Scrolls series has just been better. I don't know. When I think back to Morrowind and then going all through, the last game, they were all, I think, slightly better than the Fallouts. Slightly.
Yeah.
I love New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is one of my favorite freaking RPGs and everything. But yeah, the Elder Scrolls as a series, I think, have been better. So good answer. Good answer. Yeah. I agree. All right, let's get into our first topic. And that is, of course, let's talk about these busted AAA games that have been coming out. I've talked a little bit about Jedi Survivor last week, folks, because that is the game I've been dabbling in. And I say dabbling because I don't want to progress the story right now because it's so busted that even cutscenes sometimes aren't working right, and they'll skip. Performance issues aside, I'm getting crashes as well. I've had 2, so it's not like it's over and over. But so what I've been doing is I've just been kind of leveling up my character, until the patches hit and make this run much better. But I shouldn't have to do that. Games coming out busted like this, especially with a $70 price tag, Plume. It's just unacceptable, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. So the new update for Star Wars hasn't fixed everything? I've been hearing
No.
some good things about it.
No.
No, there's still
busted aspects. And I have both versions, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox version, because I'm just a nut that bought these two. Didn't pay full price for either, and I'm returning the physical copy of the PlayStation 5 version because the performance is a bit better on the Xbox Series X right now. And one of the main reasons is because the VRR on Sony's platform isn't as good as Xbox's. It only goes down to like 48 frames. So that low compensation, whatever, with Xbox, it goes even lower. And so when the frame rates really dip, you still get a lot of screen tearing on the PlayStation 5 version, even with the latest patch. On the Xbox, you don't. So that's a big thing for me. So
yeah, that's for me. Like I was super excited for Jedi Survivor, but we started seeing. I think it was ACG who put out a tweet after all the reviews came out, or the main reviews, and he was talking about how the game was broken essentially, and there's just so many issues with it. So that's what made me hold off from purchasing Jedi Survivor at launch. And I think like the main issue with all of the stuff with Jedi Survivor here is that there were so many reviews that came out that didn't mention any of this stuff, and people are going out and spending $70 on a game that they're not able to play at its full potential, right? So I think that's a problem, and we're seeing that across the board. It seems like it's literally an industry-wide issue. I mean, we can look at Redfall, but it's clearly not just a Redfall issue.
We'll get into what Redfall, but really quick, between the PlayStation 5 version of Jedi and the Xbox, the funny thing is on the flip side, the cutscenes on the PlayStation 5 run great. Don't have any stutters and stuff. They look really good. And they don't skip and everything like the Xbox version does sometimes, but the gameplay is king, and that screen tearing is just too much for me to handle. So unless they fix that, I would have kept that version, but nah. I say right now though, regardless of what platform you're on, wait for the game if you have not bought it yet until the patches come through and actually fix this game 100%. It's not right that they push this game out. I put a lot more blame on EA than Respawn. However, there is deadlines and stuff. These developers have to get better about that. Whether it may be an issue with, not crunching or whatnot. I don't know what the case may be. But shame on both of them to a certain degree, especially though EA, the publishers and investors pushing these games out when they're not ready. And they fully know they're not ready because they put statements out telling you, hey, the game's not ready, guys. We're going to have patches coming out, but spend your $70 because we want it. It's BS.
And EA was on a hot streak with the releases. And I feel like they like this game from the majority of stuff that I've seen, it's still an incredible game. It just has all of these issues, and they could have easily waited an extra week, got in this extra patch in, which would have taken away some more of the issues, and released it on Star Wars May the 4th or something, Star Wars Day, right? And it would have been a perfect launch, but they decided
I think
to
that's
push
what they tried to do. I think they wanted to launch by that day, and it just didn't work out very well for them. USO Vinny, thank you very much, brother. He sends me a $5 super chat saying, love the show, Fonz. Thanks for all you do. Thank you for all you do, man. I like what you do on podcasts as well, Vinny. You keep up the good work. But yeah, no, there's a lot of good people out there in the chat. I'm seeing you all. Too many of you to really list. I don't want to forget many of you here anyway, but I do want to give a shout out to all my moderators out there. The show could get kind of spicy today. There could be a lot of, weirdness going on in the chat, but I know people like Boss Mod, Lethal Papa will hold it down and, make sure that it doesn't get too crazy out there in the chat. Now, I don't want you guys to ban people for having opposite opinions or anything like that. That's fine. We can have different opinions here. But I want people to be respectful. No personal attacks, no craziness. Just keep it, keep it clean, guys. Let's be nice to each other here. You know, as Clint Eastwood says, be nice. But we can have a discussion about stuff and not get too nuts. Let's talk about something that might get nuts here because you and I kind of disagree. Let's talk about Redfall. $70 AAA game, supposedly, came out. And of course, Redfall, I got some gameplay footage that I have because I did play it, folks. I did play it for now, don't get me wrong. I only played it just over an hour, but this game is not for me. I'll say that. And why isn't Plume here? Why am I doubled on this?
You're the new Plume.
Nah, I'll fix this real quick. There you go. You're here. So
back.
anyways,
What happened?
There you go. So I've got you here now. This is my whack gameplay, guys. What's your overall impression of this game when you first booted it up and everything? What did you think right away? Initial thoughts.
Okay, so initial thoughts, I think it's somewhat deceptive because the first spot that you're loaded into, I think probably looks better than the rest of the game. It's like the first, 10 minutes of it.
I agree.
But
I agree.
Yeah, so I think it's very deceptive for a lot of people who could go in there, maybe play 10 minutes, say, hey, the game doesn't look as bad as everybody is saying. You don't realize the insane amount of issues graphically with this game and just performance-wise with this game until you get out more into the open world. So initially I was like, okay, what are these reviewers talking about? It's not as bad looking as most of them are saying.
Yeah.
In the first 10 minutes.
So my initial thoughts was, yeah, I kind of thought the same thing too. I thought, man, this doesn't look that bad, right? One of the things I noticed right away was the mechanics were sloppy. Even the UI, like going into the menu system, I think it's just sloppy. Then the gunplay is not very good. And I looked online and I found out somebody was saying, turn this down, turn this up a little bit, and it runs better. And I copied those settings and it did. It helped it out. But here's my problem with, this game overall. A first-person shooter in 2023 should not be 30 frames per second. That is the biggest damaging factor here in this game.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, even if it had 60 frames, the gunplay is still sloppy, even with the tweaks that I did. I think it's serviceable, but it's not as bad as some people have made it. Like some people say it's downright horrible and unplayable. I don't agree with that. I was getting my shots in. It wasn't that bad. But it's serviceable. I'll say that, the gunplay. And the other thing too, I noticed too, and you'll see me do it, is I walked up to people after I destroyed them, and I tried to put bullets in them while they're on the ground or hit them, and there's no detection there whatsoever. That's, I don't like that. I think the physics could have been better. I think they could have added that stuff. But anyways, yeah. And besides the initial thoughts, you've been playing it for how long now?
I've put about 10 hours into it.
Okay,
and,
10 hours.
I would say like I agree with you right away that 30 FPS on console, it isn't good. It does for first person shooters, it's really hard to play. That's why I literally after one session on Xbox switched over and started playing it on PC. There are some adjustments, like you said, like if you turn up the FOV on console all the way to 120 and then take off motion blur, it does help. But it's still 38 frames per second, and in 2023, nobody wants to play a first-person shooter at 30 FPS.
No.
But yeah, like 10 hours I've played so far, and it's not a good game. Like I think just like objectively, we can look at all of the bugs. There's way too many bugs. The AI with the cultists is absolutely terrible. The vampires actually aren't too bad. I'll give them that. Like the vampires, the AI is for some reason significantly better than the cultists I find within the game. But there's graphical errors, there's low textures, there's popping everywhere. On PC, I'm having like these huge stutters. I have to change all the settings. It's just a game that clearly isn't ready. But with all of that being said, there is fun to be had. So when people are out there saying, hey, I'm having fun with this game, I actually do believe people who are saying that. There is some fun to be had, especially when there are some better moments when you're fighting off vampires, when you're inside of a house and it's all dark and you turn on your flashlight and You kind of discover these things that you couldn't see. There is some atmosphere there that is pretty good, and I think at the base, there's something there. They just really need to. It's not a finished game. It's a game that should have probably been another 6 months to a year out before release.
Oh man, I got a lot to say too. So you're right in the fact that it's objectively not a good game, in my opinion. Well, I say opinion after I say objectively, but
that happened to me on Twitter the other day too.
It's fundamentally flawed in many areas in this game. Matter of fact, so when I'm picking up weapons and I'm looking at different stats and everything, they tell you that it boosts stats, but yet when you look at your character has no stats. Like, how do you know what it's exactly doing to your character? I don't feel like it's any different with those stats. It's like they half-assed it here. It's like they were going to put in a lot of RPG elements and then they just forgot to do it. I don't know what they were thinking here. The vampires, you mentioned the vampires. The cultists are very bad when it comes to AI, for sure.
Yeah.
The vampires are a bit better. However, for me, I cannot stand the vampires. I loathe enemies that teleport. I do not like that in any game. It's one reason why Halo 4 didn't really do it for me, because of the Prometheans. I hated when they would, you'd get those shots off and then before you were about to kill them, they would teleport behind you or something. I hated that. And it was much slower in that game. In this game, they're just like blinking all around you. Blink, 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 blink. And you're just like, how can you even fight against that when there's like 12 of them? And because I got to that point, I got into this ravine at one point and there was like 12 of them just blinking all around me. I'm like, this is stupid. This is a dumb mechanic. Like, why is this in this game? But whatever. That's a me problem, guys. I don't like teleportating enemies. I don't like that at all. I think it's cheap. It's a cheap mechanic and it's not good. Real quick before this goes away, I just want to say, or Game On Daily wants to say, delay Phil Spencer. Delay Phil Spencer. I don't know what that means. Gaz, I'm sure that's you. But yeah, no, don't delay Phil. We're going to talk about that later. But yeah, this game is just not very fun to me. And I'm looking at it just from a single player aspect, okay? Because that's the way I play my games. I'm not big into co-op. I like personal, like just exploration and stuff, big open world games. This game is very empty. And this world is very empty. The one thing I think that they could have added to the game to make it a little bit more immersive is have little encounters where you have real people hiding or running away from vampires or something when you're out in the world. Like, sure, you'll find people like hiding behind a door in a house or something, and you'll go up there and, rescue them or something. But I want more immersion out in the world. And occasionally, like, I'll be walking for a long time and not get anybody to come around me, or I don't come into contact with anybody, cultists or vampire. And I'm like, what's going on here? It's pretty empty. And it's just, I don't like it. And as you said, some people can have fun with a game, and I get that. Not everybody's the same. I get that you can have fun with it. But objectively, this game is just not worth $70, and it's not AAA in my opinion at all. It does not exude AAA in the slightest bit. Just doesn't.
Yeah, it's absolutely not worth $70. It's not ready. That's the main thing, I think. I think this is a game that got pushed out way earlier than it needed to get pushed out because Xbox wanted to get a first party game out there. Yeah. Because obviously they had Hi-Fi Rush. There's like I could go on about this forever, but when I think about it, if we remember back like in 2021 when Phil Spencer promised a game every 3 months, maybe he was thinking we got to start delivering on that promise. We need to push this out now so that we can get closer to delivering on that. But obviously it should have been delayed. And what is kind of crazy to me is that everybody saw the Cyberpunk scenario, right? You would think that these companies now would realize that that's not a situation they ever want to be in, but clearly they must have analytics or stats that say even if they do push it out in this state, they will still be able to make some money back on it. So maybe that's why they did push it out. But there's a lot of issues obviously that went through the pipeline of development for this game, and we don't really know, but the game just isn't ready.
Yeah, and I think one of those issues might have been, I'm wondering anyway, if any one of those issues was the fact that, you know, the whole 12-month plan thing, and they've already pushed games like Forza and Starfield out of that 12 months. Geez, we got to put something within that 12 months. Let's let it be Redfall. I'd like to think that's not the case, that Microsoft really pushed for this. And I just don't know, man. And this gives so many questions. This drives me to question so much about Xbox right now. They're not delivering, man. This is not it, man. This is the type of game that fanboys on the PlayStation side were saying that was going to be in Game Pass, you know, and Game Pass fodder, they called it, you know. This is the type of game that they've been warning about. And it's man. And I know some of you out there that are having fun with the game with friends and stuff, but I can have fun playing Uno with friends. Straight up. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, with friends, I could have fun just talking in party chat. Like, there's a difference, man. Try to play this game on your own, and it's just a lot of stuff lacking. A lot of stuff lacking. Even Phil himself knows that this was a mistake to put out like this. He's admitted that. Yeah. It's
you could see it in his face that he knew it was a mistake. And I guess there was more information also that did come out about well, he admitted, right, that he doesn't want this to happen again, and that they should have gotten involved with Redfall earlier when they realized it was only going to be 30 FPS on console, which was a mistake that they're learning from. And then when they did their internal reviews, they thought it was going to be 10 points higher, which is don't understand how they got 10 points higher, but it's a learning experience, I guess you could say. But you would expect from a massive company like Microsoft that they wouldn't need this type of learning experience for a game like this.
Yeah. Like no bullet detection there. I'm shooting the guy in the head, the face, the chest, and it's nothing. Yeah. Like, it's... I don't... The NPCs are bad too, man. Like, I was walking around to different NPCs, and a lot of times they just sigh at you. They're like, huh... And I'm like, you're not going to say anything? Like, the interactions are weird.
Yeah, one thing I will say, though, is that I actually do kind of think that the atmosphere here could be something pretty good if they finish this game. And I actually kind of like the town and the whole setting that they were going for. It's more disappointing to me that they released it in this day, because I think they actually did have something. That's what most disappointing about this entire release. But
the problem is, Plume, what they have here is so bare bones and so just like, you know, when you talk about having a foundation for a game, it's literally just the foundation. Like, there's so much that needs to be built upon that foundation that I'm sad. I think it would take years to really make this game shine. I think, I don't know, man. It's just not good to me, guys. It really isn't. If I had to put a number on it, and I just played an hour of it, I would give it like a 5 out of 10 at this point. Like, it's not worth my time.
I'm like at a 6.5 maybe, but I've played like 10 hours, and I will say, as you do progress, there are certain things that do open up, and that kind of, when you start fighting like the higher boss enemies, it gets a little bit better. So I would say I'm about a 6.
Yeah, the toilet doesn't even flush, guys. It just kind of runs water in it and just whatever. I don't know. Highlander 001, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. He says, you're right on the AI, and the city is very empty. A me problem is seeing the kid's bedroom covered in a lot of blood. That bothers me. Oh, well, that adds to the immersion, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty scary. It's a scary thought, really is. It's creepy. I get that. But yeah, I get if you don't like it, man. USO Vinny again with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much. He says, Phil Spencer's mindset isn't helping either. We're going to talk about that mindset in a little bit here, very shortly, because I kind of want to get away from this whole Redfall topic, because honestly, like the game, it bores me. All right, it just does. Now let's talk about that infamous Phil Spencer interview, my friend. Let's talk about how the Kinda Funny Games crew, I got to say this real quick. Kinda Funny Games killed it. They asked the right questions. I thought they did a really fantastic job, and I thought they knocked it out the park. So my hat's off to Kinda Funny Games. They did an excellent job. What did you think? You think they same?
I honestly, I'll be like, I thought they did an amazing job. I was surprised. I actually was thinking that they would just be throwing softballs at Phil, but they did a great job, and that's the type of interviews people want to see, right? That was awesome.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of times when I see a Phil interview, usually it's like, Phil, what's your favorite color? And just like, no. Yeah, especially right after the whole Redfall thing and everything, it was just so surreal to watch. Okay. Yeah. What was your biggest takeaway from this? Well, no, I won't say that yet. What was your initial thoughts when you, right after you watched the interview?
My initial thoughts were that I gained more respect for Phil Spencer because he literally went on there and took it on the chin, which is like what you should be doing as a leader. You could tell that he was genuine in his responses. You could see like the emotion in his face. He was sad. He was disappointed. Is probably a better word. And he knew that they screwed up, right? And he could have easily just hid and not come out and addressed anything. So I was like more. My respect overall grew for Phil. And I also was just like happy with his responses. I thought that he gave good responses on the things that I like what Xbox does. Like they like to diversify their catalog and not just focus on the virtuous cycle of games, and that they're doubling down on making sure that studios get to continue with creating stuff that they want to create. I was happy that he addressed the fact that he knows that they screwed up on Redfall and that they're hearing what the community is saying. And then I was just happy that he continued to be confident in their strategy, which is the whole ecosystem thing, which everybody misconstrued, right, as saying something completely different. But I'm sure we'll talk about that after. Yeah. And showing me that they believe that they're not backing away because they made a mistake with Redfall, and they do believe that providing access to as many people as possible and continuing to provide value to Game Pass is the strategy going forward.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of had an opposite initial reaction after I watched this. I thought, here's Phil again with all the right answers again, saying a lot of the same things he said in the past. And it kind of made me annoyed at times because we've heard this song and dance from Xbox. And again, he's saying all the right things, but actions speak louder than words. And he said some of the same stuff before and really hasn't put it into action as of yet. So I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on everything that Phil has said here, but I will say this. One thing that I took away from this interview from Phil is the fact that Phil, differently from his other interviews that I've seen him in, where he said all this kind of stuff, is he went through a whole range of emotions that were genuine. I will say that. The emotions there were genuine. And he went through like every stage there. I mean, he was annoyed at times. He was upset at times. He was nervous at times. And I had not seen Phil like that ever.
Yeah. To me, it was like when you watch sports, right? And they do these interviews after, like I watch a ton of hockey, after a hockey game, right? And they're just regurgitating the same thing over and over again every single game. Then magically there's this one player who gives like a genuine response, and it's a completely different reaction from the people who are watching, and everyone loves it. To me, that was kind of like this interview with Phil. You could see everything he was saying he truly believed, and he felt completely disappointed on how they let down the Xbox community. Whereas, and he didn't go into, he did some PR speak, of course, but like he was genuine in everything that he was saying.
One thing that you brought up that he mentioned was the fact that he talked about, letting the developers build what they want to build, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I've been a very staunch proponent of, or I've been against this whole hands-off approach that Microsoft's been doing with their developers, okay? And that's not to say I don't want to see these developers create what they want to create. I think that that's very good for the industry because a lot of creative games could come out of that. Look at the AA, studios and stuff. That's where most of the creativity we're seeing that's new in the industry is coming from these days. AAA games are getting like just copied and like rehashed over and over. You're getting a bunch of sequels and things like that, remasters and remakes. So I appreciate that thought process where he's like, yeah, I'm going to let them create what they want to create. But at the same time, it's got to be a good game. Like it can't be and you can say what you want. You can love Pentiment, guys. But most people, most gamers don't want a Pentiment.
No, but it was critically acclaimed. So yeah, for them, it's a win.
I get it. I get it. But when I look at the casual gamer out there, which is the majority of gamers, they don't want a Pentiment. They don't want a Redfall even. They want high quality games. And it's kind of a slippery slope because on one hand, you have to appreciate the fact that he wants these developers to build what they want, but there's got to be some quality control there. And that's my biggest issue with Xbox right now. Quality control.
Yeah. No, I think like that quality control is like indisputable. They obviously are lacking some sort of a pipeline control of how before these games are released. And Phil, essentially, I guess he admitted that essentially by saying they jumped into Redfall too late and that they are going to try to improve on that. I mean, they have to improve on that. They can't try anymore. They have to improve on that or it's going to be too late. But I don't know, man. Like, I think like
you just saw the NPC there, like these NPCs. We don't want games with NPCs that look like this. Like we just don't. And I know this art style, it's, stylized, it's different. And everybody likes different things, but it's not even just the style of the art here. It's not just the design of the NPC. It's also the fact that when you talk to these NPCs, their lips are just like all off. You can walk behind them and they're still looking straight ahead, talking as if they're talking to you. Like it's not, the quality is not there.
The game clearly wasn't finished. Like that's the only conclusion I've come to. They pushed it out for some other reason, financial reasons, business reasons. They want to work on something else. They just pushed out. Their game clearly isn't done when it comes to Redfall. But I like when we talk about Pentiment, I actually I like that they released Pentiment. Did I play it? No, but I like that they released a game like that that is completely different than what we see over and over again.
I could respect that, but you have to have something there for the AAA crowd. Yes, and this was supposed to be the beacon of this was supposed to be their first new IP AAA $70 game to come out, and it failed miserably. Again, no matter what you think at home, and you think, hey, I enjoyed the game. It's okay to me. That's fine. You can have that opinion, but the majority of the gamers out there have already stated this game sucks. That's what they've done. Yeah. It's been labeled as a terrible game. And that's why you see Phil is the way he was in that interview. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just damaging to the brand when you release a game that they've touted as AAA, which they probably maybe should have not touted it as such a big game, especially when we look at the fact that they're using slideshow for cutscenes. Maybe it should have been touted as a more medium-sized, medium-ranged game, and that would have changed the way that people perceived it a little bit. But that's on them, and that's another thing that I think that's an issue with Xbox is their whole marketing side of stuff.
And messaging, their messaging is really, really bad. One of the parts of the interview that I want to really focus on here is something where he was visibly annoyed. Like you could tell he was going at the fanboy console crowd when he was talking about this, which a lot of people just omitted from the whole conversation. But it's the narrative that Xbox could catch up to Nintendo and Sony in console sales if they would just make great games. That's what a lot of people are putting out there. If they would just make great games, Microsoft could catch Sony and Nintendo. They can surpass them. All you need is great games. And they totally omitted everything that Phil and company have been saying about Xbox since 2017. And it's insane to me. And I'm going to play the clip, the entire clip, within context. With everything is there. Nothing is omitted. Here is the entire quote, people.
We have a different vision. You know, Paris talked about this. It's play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want. We want Xbox to be something that people who buy our console can feel like they're a member of.
Hold up. I just want to pause it there real quick. You heard him say that they have a different vision, right? They've been talking about this since 2017. No, but everybody omits this part of the conversation here. This part of the quote. Just listen to him.
Obviously, who are playing on PC, who are playing on cloud, that they feel like they're full members of our ecosystem. Game Pass players can play on many different devices, and we remain fully committed to that. We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. There isn't really a great solution or win for us. And I know that will upset a ton of people, but it's just the truth of the matter is that when you're third place in the console marketplace and the top two players are as strong as they are and have, in certain cases, very discrete focus on doing deals and other things that will that kind of make being Xbox hard for us as a team. That's on us, not on anybody else. Our vision is that everybody who's on console has to feel like they have a great experience and they're a first-class citizen. They've invested a ton in our platform, but we are not in a position, and I see it out there. I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see console share shift in some dramatic way. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games. So when you go and you're building on Xbox, we want our Xbox community to feel awesome. But this idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think doesn't really lay into the reality of most people, like 90%.
Remember that. He said, win the console race, people. It's about the fucking consoles.
Of the people every year who walk into a retailer to buy a console are already a member of one of the three ecosystems, and their digital library is there. This is the first generation where the big games that they're playing were games that were available last gen. When you think about Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft, like the continuity from generation to generation is so strong. I see a lot of pundits out there that kind of want to go back to the time where we all had cartridges and discs and every new generation was a clean slate and you could switch the whole console share. That's just not the world that we are in today. There is no world where Starfield's an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5.
100% correct. 100%.
So what we have to do, and we have this unique vision because we see what creators want to do. Creators want to build games that can meet players on any screen. People play with their friends regardless of what other screen they're on. And the console is the core of the Xbox brand. There's no doubt. So like we will stay focused on making sure that console experience is awesome. But I know some people want to hold us up of just being a better green version of what the blue guys do. And I'm just going to say, like, there's not a win for Xbox in staying in the wake of somebody else. We have to go off and do our own thing with Game Pass, with the stuff we do with xCloud, and the way we build our games.
You hear that? I mean, he explains it fucking perfectly, but for some reason, people out there that like to use their hands and talk like this and tilt their head as they talk to you, you know, have to just spin things for clicks because they'll constantly ask you, make sure you hit that VIP. I want you to become a VIP member. Remember, VIP. Yeah. Anyways, I mean, what is it about this that people don't get, Plume? What is it?
It's not that they don't get it. It's that it's just super easy and to dunk, I guess, on Xbox, and people like to do that, and that's why they do it. this is my entire thing when it comes to this week. This week, and probably maybe I've just been naive for the last, I don't know, 5 years that I've been doing YouTube videos, but this week really opened my eyes to just how disingenuous a lot of people in the gaming community are. A lot of how much creators lie about stuff and how disingenuous they are, because there's no way that you've been covering video games, you've been covering the gaming industry since the last couple of years, and think that Phil Spencer said anything new here that he hasn't been saying over the last 5 years. So the only conclusion I can come to is that all these people are lying to their viewers because they know it drives traffic to their channel. And there's really nothing you can do about that, because I guess the people who watch that stuff, they just love when people are anti Xbox or making fun of Xbox. They know those are the viewers that are coming to their channel, and they just seek out anything that they can laugh at, essentially. Yeah. So that's what I've learned this week when it comes to this entire thing.
Yeah, and let's break this down a little bit more. Okay, so if they had more compelling games, Starfield 11 out of 10, of course they would gain more market share, okay? But you have to understand, people, Xbox is on way more than one platform. So the console is no longer their main focus, okay? That's where I take issue where he said the console, is still like, their top priority and all this. I take issue with that, and I'll get into why. But outside of that, he's not lying when he's telling you they're on multiple platforms. They're on PC, cloud, Game Pass. You can play these games on your freaking TV. Like, you don't need the console. So even if they have an 11 out of 10 game, he's telling you not everybody's going to rush to buy the console. And even if they did that, not everybody's going to sell their PS5, because they're not. So it makes zero sense for anybody to say if they make great games that they could surpass Sony, when not every gamer is going to buy an Xbox console. They're not, to play the game. With Sony and Nintendo, you have to buy that one console to play their games, right? So you have to buy the games there. Sony's not putting their games on PC day and date, because their main focus right now is console. That's not Microsoft's main focus. Microsoft's main focus is the entire ecosystem, including Game Pass, cloud, console, and PC, day and date. It's a big difference. So, yeah, I mean, that pretty much sums it up, don't you think, Plume?
That's exactly what their strategy is, right? Like, we have the numbers here to prove all of these things that Phil Spencer has been saying, right? One of the main things people always like to argue is that the first party is the main driver of platforms, right? But you take a look at any financial report from these companies, and by far and away, in terms of revenues and sales, it's always third party. And you could say, yeah, because there's more third party games, but it doesn't change the fact that that's what drives their business. We literally even had Sony for a year now saying that Call of Duty was the main game that held up their entire platform. So it's not building great first party games, which is going to push out and give you a ton of market share over or compete and try to gain back all that market share to get from Sony, right? But their strategy has been the same. Their strategy is monthly active users. Their strategy is getting as many people to play on any device as possible. And that's literally all he was referring to here. He wasn't saying that they aren't going to try to build great games. Obviously, you need to build great games. There's many advantages.
What was that? Like, I even see people in the chat, well, it comes down to building those great games. When did Phil ever say in this quote that he was not going to build great games? Never. When did he say he was throwing in the towel? Never. He's just explaining to you that they're not in the business of just selling you one platform. They're not. And there's no way you can catch up. PlayStation outsold Xbox last gen 2-1. Last quarter, they outsold them like 6-1. How are they going to catch up to Sony?
And how are they ever going to catch up when there's no chance they'll ever come close to selling as much as a PlayStation or Nintendo in other parts of the world, like Japan, right? There's just no way. It'll never happen. So like, they have these numbers in front of them. I think they know what they're doing. That's literally all he was saying, but he's not saying they're not going to try to build great first party.
That's the most asinine thing I've heard with all this is that they're saying they're not going to build any great games. It's not worth it. They've already lost the console war race. They've thrown in the towel. None of that was said. He's explaining to you exactly what their business plans are and what they've been for the last 5 or 6 years. And it's just crazy to me that people can't understand. If you have multiple places to play Xbox games, not everybody's going to choose the console. Matter of fact, I think somebody was telling me recently that 50% of Game Pass gamers are on PC. So how's the console going to be winning this console race? That's what he's talking about. And he was annoyed by it, and so am I. I'm annoyed by people always talking about this console race and the console wars. It's dumb. At the end of the day, both companies are making money in different ways. Maybe it'll help if I head tilt. Maybe you'll get it. But seriously, I don't get how nobody sees that. Or some people do. There's people in my chat that understood it completely. There's people out there who've made videos that understood it completely. You made an awesome video on it, Plume. And you went back showing everything that, you know, he's been saying about this for 5 or 6 years. The same thing. There is nothing new that he said here. Nothing. It's all been said before.
Yeah. It's
really quick. Let me get to these super chats. Doc Dark 1985. Thank you very much for the $5 super chat. I got to have you on sometime, Dark. Seriously, got to have you on. He says, you just gave me a video idea, Plume. Can Redfall be cyberpunked? Meaning, can it be saved later and become a hit? I don't know. Making the vid tonight. I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. That's just me, though. I'm going to say no. Papa Boko 72 for $20. Thank you very much, Papa Boko. Appreciate you. He says, great show as always, Fonz. Great to see Plume on here, too. Hit that like button. Chat, show these gentlemen some love. Yeah, I appreciate it. If you like the show, hit the like button. If you don't, I get it. I've got some dislikes up here. I see them, but it's all good, people. We can agree to disagree, and that is fine. But when it comes to this statement here, I can't believe that so many people got it wrong. And I think some people were just being willfully ignorant for those clicks. I think that's really happening as well. But it just doesn't make sense to me that some people honestly don't get what he said. You know, it's crazy. Percolator 9000, thank you very, very much for the $5 super chat. He says, sorry I'm late. I have made it live. Hello, everyone. Hit that like button or I will hit you. Hit it for you. Hit you. No, Percolator's not going to be violent. He's not going to hit you. He said he'll hit it for you. I wish you could hit it for him, but you can't do that. I appreciate you guys very much, man. Juan with the super chat. What is that? 1,000 from Juan. I don't know what that currency is, but he says, thanks for keeping it real, Fonz. It's kind of disappointing to see other gamers worried about Xbox selling consoles when Microsoft is only focusing on monthly active users since people can play almost anywhere. And that's the truth. Juan, 100% you get it. That is what it's about for Microsoft. It is not about the console. But that's where I take issue, Plume. I don't know about you. Let me ask you, do you feel like Microsoft is treating you as good as they could as a Series X owner?
No, not at this point. Like I said in my video, one of the things I can completely understand is people being concerned right now about being treated like a first-class citizen on the console because of the release of Redfall, right? Because of the release, the fact that it's 30 FPS compared to 60 FPS. And one of the things like Xbox has to do going forward, my opinion at least, is focusing and making sure that when they're showing gameplay, when they're showing off games, that they're showing off as the core experience is going to be on the Series X, right? Like that the core experience of Xbox on your Series X is the same on PC. And by that, I mean is like the same. You can get 60 FPS, you can get a certain resolution.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
But you know, when he's talking about the console being the core of Xbox, right? It's not that he's saying that, you know, he's basically alluding to, look, the consoles is what got us here. All right. But that's where I think they've lost some focus. And I actually, you know, I can't really talk. I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. But I've talked to a certain executive over at Xbox myself. I messaged him and I was respectful. However, I was very disappointed. And I told him exactly how I felt. I feel that they have lost focus on the console brand itself. And we are the ones that really got them to where they are today. All right. So when we bought the OG Xbox, when we bought the Xbox 360, and I told this person all this, I felt like we were, you know, being treated like first-class citizens. Now I feel like a second-class citizen as a Series X owner. I just do. I feel like they've lost sight of that core audience that Phil talked about there. I feel they completely lost sight of that because, again, when they show off these games on shows and stuff, they're showing it on PCs. They've showed 60 frames on Redfall for months now. And then all of a sudden, oh, we're going to slap a sticker on Redfall boxes saying, hey, 60 frames will come later for you guys.
That was terrible.
For you console guys. How am I supposed to feel like we're the core part of this company? I don't feel like, you know, that I am. I feel like they've lost focus of that. And, you know, without saying exactly what, I was shocked that I got messaged back. And they told me, a long message telling me that they understand my disappointment. They don't like it either. And they were pointing fingers and I'll just say this. The emotion you could tell was exuding from those messages that I got. It was a lot like the emotions that Phil went through on that interview. They are listening at Xbox, but they've been listening for years. I told them we need to see it in action. And I told them some of the same stuff that you just brought up, Plume. They have to show these games running on a Series X on their shows. Yeah. They have to be more transparent on how these games are going to run on our Series X consoles. Like, show us that we're the core part of your audience, all right? Show us that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was the only part of the interview where I was like, I wasn't buying yet what he was selling. Everything else, I was like, I was happy with what he said, but that part, it's like, we need to see the proof, right? There's no more, oh, you're the core, and then what's going to happen with Starfield? Like, how much better is Starfield going to be on PC versus Xbox? Is Xbox even going to have 60 frames per second? If it doesn't, and it does on PC, again, that's just another example that clearly Series X isn't the core for them. It's just they want to get as many people anywhere, and they don't really care, and they're not focusing as much on the Series X as the core part of Xbox. So,
and I think the ABK deal has also got in the way as well. I think that whole mess has just I think it's just diverted their focus from this core audience that they once had that was so pumped for Xbox and their games. And it's been forever since I've been like that. I mean, I've never considered myself an Xbox guy, PlayStation guy. Matter of fact, more people consider me a PlayStation guy because I prefer PlayStation exclusives, because I do. I like their games. However, I've always had an Xbox, always enjoyed an Xbox, loved the 360 era, one of the best consoles ever, in my opinion. Lots of great games come from that console. But we haven't seen that. All of last generation Xbox was pretty much a failure, in my opinion. There were some good games here and there, don't get me wrong, but overall, I mean, just like Phil said in the interview, they lost the worst possible generation that they could have because so many people built up their libraries last gen.
And that point alone I don't know how people don't understand that point either when it comes to the whole console war thing. Like, if you spend thousands of dollars on a digital library on one platform, back the PS4 or this Xbox One, you're not going to abandon those thousands of dollars.
No. Like
you used to be able to when you had all these physical games that you still had. Even if you didn't have the console, at any point you could just go and still see the investment that you have, physically sell them, do all these types of things, right? But when you have a digital library, you spend thousands of dollars, you're going to keep that, especially with now that these consoles are backwards compatible and you can play all these games on the platform that you've built up.
It's true. Udani Quesada, I see you, brother. Thank you for the super chat. He says, it is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. Upton Sinclair, enough said. Very well said. But it's true. It's true. For some people, it is like that. My concern is a lot of these big influencers on YouTube, way bigger than us, Plume, that spout this nonsense and spin this in a way where it convinces a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that that's what Phil said. And Phil didn't say Xbox is doomed and we're throwing in the towel and we can never make a great game. It's just utter stupidity that these people are spewing this nonsense.
And I just want to say one thing, and I wonder if you're Phil right now, does it discourage you from ever being as candid as he was ever again, right? When you're seeing this stuff going on.
I share a lot of the same concerns about Phil that a lot of people do out there right now. That said, am I saying fire Phil? No. Yeah. I think that would be a terrible thing to do at this point, where they're at. Okay. Phil has done a lot of great for the company. Phil, I could even argue, saved this company. He's done a lot of great things. And somebody had posted something on Twitter, and I'm going to post this. And I got a rebuttal to it, but somebody posted this. Phil Spencer, they said they believe in Phil Spencer, and they posted a bunch of stuff he's done and a lot of things I agree with here. And I'm like, yeah, he did a lot of great things. He brought this stuff, to us and removed some things like the Kinect, which I wanted removed. I actually waited for the Kinect to be removed last generation before I bought a Xbox One, because I didn't want to Kinect. I hated that thing. Yeah. Anyways, he did a lot of great things here, guys. But here's my rebuttal to this. And it's a big one, okay? Huge one. Right down below. Has released great new AAA IP consistently. That is the problem. The only problem I have with Phil Spencer. The only problem. And I think it's very fair, Plume.
That's fair. The question I have is, let's say Starfield comes out, it's good. Forza comes out, it's good. Even if just those two release this year, does that solve the problem, or is there still a lot more to come? And let's say Hellblade comes out, because a lot of people are pointing to Hellblade 2 coming out this year. If those three come out and they're all well liked,
oh my gosh,
is the problem solved, or is faith back, or is it still?
Well, okay,
we don't know yet. Until...
Great question, because I'll just say this right off the bat. It doesn't make them the console leader. They'll never surpass Sony, even if they're 11 out of 10s. That's not going to happen because, again, it's play anywhere, people. It's multiple platforms for Xbox, one for the other guys. But I know what you're getting at. And I don't think it solves the problem. I think it starts a better movement for Xbox. It's a better direction for Xbox. These games have to start coming out in better ways. The quality control has to be there. But here's the one thing that I think that Redfall has done to Starfield, and it's kind of unfair. Because Redfall, objectively has been panned by so many people out there, it has put a lot of pressure on Starfield to be perfect in a lot of people's eyes. And we know, as Bethesda fans, I've been there day one for every Bethesda single-player game. I love Bethesda RPGs. They're bugs and all, okay? I've been there. They're called Bugthesda for a reason. They've never dropped a game without any bugs. Yet, these bugs, when they do drop, because I guarantee there's going to be bugs there. Again, it's Bethesda. But these bugs, unfortunately, now because of Redfall, will be magnified by 10.
Yeah.
Everything that's wrong with Redfall will be magnified by 10 because, Xbox sucks. That's the perception.
Yeah, it's completely unfair. But the reality is the chance that Starfield, like you said, releases without bugs is probably extremely, extremely low. So Well, we'll see. The other question I have is like how reviewers are going to review this game if it does have bugs, right? Like Jedi Survivor had tons of bugs and it got 9s and 10s out of 10. So is Starfield going to be in that same boat, or is it going to be in the boat where it's hurt by the perception of Xbox and hurt by the perception of the recent releases?
I hope, it is interesting because it's going to be interesting to see if OpenCritic and Metacritic actually reflect that, you know, the fact that, you know, the perception of Xbox and everything, instead of just reviewing the game on its own merits, you know, because I believe, and I wholeheartedly believe this, guys, and it's not because I'm not an Xbox guy. Like I told you earlier, I'm not an Xbox guy, but I am a diehard Bethesda single-player RPG guy. And I have 100% confidence in Todd and his team to deliver Starfield. I think this game is going to be incredible. I do, however, think this game is probably going to be 30 frames. And that's because of various things that I've been told behind the scenes as well. Now, you know, their attention to detail. The fact that you can pick things up, you know, look at it. There's a lot of detail within the world. It's very CPU intensive. And what have we seen with a lot of CPU taxing games this generation? They're 30 frames per second, you know, or there might be a 40 frame per second mode, you know, performance mode, but that's not good enough. I want 60 frames. I do want 60 frames. However, I'm fully expecting this game to drop at 30. I just am. I am. And I think that will be unfairly criticized too. Even though all their single-player RPGs have dropped at 30 on console, that's going to be magnified 10 times too.
What was your takeaway from Wilson from Phil saying when it came to?
Oh, when he was asked if they would be transparent with if it's going to be 30 or 60, he just said really quick. Like he sort of just wanted to get through that, skate through it really fast. I'm hoping that they are transparent in that they tell us right away during that show and say, hey, you know, if it's going to be 30, tell us. If there's a performance mode, tell us. I'll be happy as hell if there's a performance mode. I'm just not expecting that. It doesn't mean I can't enjoy the game. I see a lot of people out there, even though I prefer the performance mode, even if it's not running that great, like with Jedi, I cannot run it at that 30 frames mode. I don't want to because I see the performance mode there. And it does run, you know, kind of weird, but most of the times it's nicer, okay? Even on Jedi. So I run it performance, but I've seen a lot of people out there that want 60 frames, but they're running that game at 30 and having a blast, saying it's incredible. So a lot of you guys out there will play this game even at 30 and love it. So
yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I again hope it's 60. Hope there's a 60 mode, but I'm expecting 30. But I'm expecting an incredible Starfield game. I'm expecting it to be awesome. But yeah, I don't agree with Phil with people's assertions that he should be fired for a number of reasons, though. Plume. One of those reasons is who's going to take over, right? We've seen sort of the grooming of a specific person that's been there for a few years now. This seems to be the one that a lot of people think that's going to take over. And I don't quite think that she would be ready yet. And that's Sarah Bond, I believe. I think that she would be next in line, but I think she's next in line for when he retires in a few years. I do think and plus he's on his way out anyway. I think he's retiring in a few years.
He's at that age, right? And that's the question I have too, is who's next line and what guarantee is that they'll do as good of a job as Phil Spencer, right? People who want him fired and out of there, it's there's no guarantee that somebody coming in isn't going to do a better job or even just a good of a job as Phil. Because Phil has done a great job since he's been there. You look at how he's turned around this entire thing from the Xbox One, right? There's just absolutely no guarantee. So
yeah, he's brought me Game Pass. I love Game Pass. I that's the one thing about the Xbox brand that I love most is that subscription service. I just want more quality AAA titles within that service. That's what I need. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to see ABK go through, is just to have more titles, AAA titles within Game Pass. I could care less about their bottom line about the Xbox brand itself when it comes to, you know, their pocket. I don't care about that. I care about my pocket. So services like Game Pass, even if the PlayStation Network would have their premium service, if they would get day and date, I'd be there. I'd be there because I love that whole thing. I love subscription services. I like to consume my products that way. Yes, I fully know I'm renting the game. I'm not buying the game. Okay. But I like it. I like it. I play it. Usually games, I play it once anyway and I'm done with it. Like I hardly ever go back.
It's the best. It's like you sit back and you think about when I was younger, you would have to go to a Blockbuster and just pick a game off the shelf and get it for 3 days and bring it back. We literally have this. It's the best time to be a gamer right now. And people still complaining that Game Pass is a bad thing, to me is just mind blowing with the value selection, everything that's in that service. And I think for most people out there who've been drawn over to Xbox recently, that's what they're seeing, right? They're seeing the value of what the service provides.
Yeah, no, for sure. But what do you say to people that say, you know, fire Phil, get rid of Phil? What would you say to those guys?
I just think they're crazy. Like they lack common sense. I mean, look at Xbox and how it's improved since he's been there. And right now the business is healthy, right? Like, although you could argue maybe the console side of things is not doing as well as people want with their recent financials where they said it was down like 30% and they were blaming it on supply issues. Maybe that's what is pissing people off. But other than that, everything else with Xbox is extremely healthy from a business perspective. And then there's the first party stuff that people want to have better, obviously, with the release of Redfall. We'll see what Starfield does. If Starfield is a complete failure, then I guess you could entertain it a little bit more. But I think overall, the positives that Phil has brought to Xbox far outweigh the negatives. And getting rid of him at this point just makes no sense.
If Starfield does not land,
yeah, you can start talking about it.
Here's the thing. I would be livid.
I think
I would be so pissed off for many reasons. And honestly, like, I don't know what I would do exactly, but I personally don't think that's going to happen. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to doom and gloom it. But I know what you're saying. If that happened, that would be so bad for the brand. It would be so bad for even, but for Bethesda. What a bad look. That would be the first. See, this is why I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Bethesda has not put out a single player RPG that's bad. Ever. Critically, ever. Like they have Game of the Year nominees and Game of the Year winners when it comes to their single player RPGs. They have not put out a bad single player RPG. Fallout 76, that co-op thing, fuck that game. Seriously. I never wanted to play that game. Though. When I saw that game and I saw it was co-op, I didn't even want to play it. And I'm a big Bethesda fan, but I just don't care for those. I like the single player experience. I like to explore shit on my own. I don't care about meeting other people in the world and everything. It didn't attract me at all from the beginning. So I don't even look at that game and think, Bethesda sucks because of that. No, they've had so many great games. But I'm personally, I'll say this, I'm personally kind of at an impasse with Xbox, and it's not a complete dead end, but I'm definitely to the point where where Xbox needs to walk the walk, man. Stop just doing all this talking and stuff. They need to show us. And it's not just like show us these games at the show, but release the games, deliver these games, and make sure they're high quality and they're ready for launch. They need to.
I think a lot of people are getting fed up. But what I hope they don't do is this showcase coming up, they don't overreact. I hope they don't think that they need to overreact and then show us a bunch of games that they have in their pipeline that won't be ready for like 3, 4, 5 years. get people on board, because I think that would be just a huge mistake. I think they just have to make sure that this year ends off strong, like Starfield strong, Forza strong, and then potentially something else that comes out if Hellblade 2 makes the way out is strong. And I think that will just really like make a huge difference in people's belief that they're able to actually put out high quality first party content.
You're right about putting out that high quality content, but when you talk about showing games that are, you know, a long time away, I kind of like that. Sony does it all the time, and I like that. I like when they show us, you know, things that are coming and I can get excited for. I like that. But yeah, you have to focus on what's, you know, going to be delivered soon for sure for Xbox right now. But also, if they showed us a couple of things that's going to be, you know, way out, even one thing that is really exciting, I think that would do a lot of good as well, because people want to be excited about a brand. They do. And it always helped out Sony. That's one thing at their shows they've delivered on, was the fact that they'd show these games that were 4 years out, and people would get so excited for it. But games like Fable, Avowed, Perfect Dark, you know, these games that they've talked about already, they need to start showing us what these games are exactly about. They need to show those.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that's my whole thing too. Like you mentioned, Sony shows off those games that are 4 years out, but it's because people are super confident that it doesn't matter. Those games are going to be coming out at the highest quality possible.
Yep.
So I think like it's cool to show like one or two, but everybody's been asking questions for the last few years. Where's Avowed? Where's Fable? Where's Perfect Dark? Where's State of Decay 3? All these things they showed off years and years ago. And I think people start to get like worried about it. We see all these articles about these games now, right? Like there's something wrong with Perfect Dark. There's something wrong with Fable. All these things. I think they need to try to avoid that going forward.
True. No, that's 100% right. That's why they got to get in front of it, right? Like they're so quiet on games like Perfect Dark, Avowed. And you know, it's weird too, because a game like Avowed, I could understand kind of Perfect Dark, because Perfect Dark seemed like there was a lot of turmoil going on behind the scenes and stuff at the beginning of that, you know, whole development cycle. But when you look at like Avowed from Obsidian, this is Obsidian. This studio is known for great RPGs. This studio made one of the best, in my opinion, and that's Fallout New Vegas. So for them not to really push or market Avowed much, or at least talk about it, show it, like it's weird to me. Like they have to show something on Avowed. What do you think about the June 11th show? What do you think they're going to show there? What do you think?
I think they will show Avowed. I
hope so, bro.
But I think like overall, we're definitely obviously a Forza showcase of some sort. They're going to talk about it at least. And Starfield, they have their own thing. I have this weird feeling, my fingers crossed, because of the previous interviews that Phil and even Matt Booty have said, unless they were just lying about it, but saying that Fable, they've seen stuff from Fable and that it looks good, that maybe we will see something from Fable. We'll get a huge Hellblade 2 thing. And then I think we'll also see some of those games that have been announced from like a third party perspective, like the Contraband, that are going to be launching to Xbox Game Pass. Yeah. So my biggest fingers crossed thing is that they just give us like excitement of first party, third party stuff just coming into Game Pass relatively soon on top. Like, I think that's very important.
Safo in the chat said, why does Xbox need to be transparent? Needs to hit all these metrics, yet nothing from Sony besides money hats. There's a difference there. Sony's nailing their AAA games. They're nailing their first party games. Xbox isn't. That's a big difference. I know this year there's only one first party game from Sony, and that's kind of a bad thing. But again, like you said, they money hat these deals. And they've got some great games in the pipeline through multiplats, like Final Fantasy 16 coming. That's stuff that Microsoft could do too. You know, they money hat stuff too. They had Wolong in Game Pass. They could do more of that. That would help Xbox a lot. Even, you know, first party aside, if Xbox would get more AAA multiplats within Game Pass, that would help immensely with the perception of the service. Big time. That's what I think.
We've seen Sony just today. We got that news that they're potentially money hatting Metal Gear and Castlevania I think there was something else in there, Silent Hill, as PS5 timed exclusives.
Yeah. Let me get through some of these super chats here that I have saved up. I've got Hugh Man. I like that. With the alien creature as an avatar. I like it. $5. Thank you very much, man. He says, Phil has to apologize almost yearly. Yeah, I know. This is why I'm saying I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I need to see action. I'm done with this whole, song and dance that Microsoft's been doing. Show me. And this is the message I've sent to their executive. Like, I said that. Like, I'm not cutting corners. I'm not sitting here defending them anymore. I want action. Until Xbox delivers great games consistently, they will never get the benefit of doubt. 100% right. Quality brings loyalty. 100% right. You can't disagree with that. It's the truth, Plume.
Well, that's the thing. The thing with first party quality, what it does more so than anything is it brings that brand loyalty. It brings that brand recognition. It's like such an important marketing tool. Yep. People were people were mixing that up from what Phil Spencer was saying to like the fact that they're going to abandon it because they don't believe that it matters type of thing this week, which was crazy.
Danny Passion Official with the $2 super chat. He says, I think you missed a previous super chat I sent. I'm sorry, Danny. Man, if I missed it, I apologize. If you can, just write it out in the chat and I'll read it, brother. I'm very sorry, man. I did not mean to. I've got Game Shark here with a $2 super chat. He says, I don't think, but any shadow drop predictions. Oh yeah. Do you think there will be any shadow drops this June?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But you know what? Here's the interesting thing. So you saw that little ad thing that they had where it was showing all these upcoming games this year, and they threw Hellblade 2 in there. Yep. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a sign maybe Hellblade 2 is very ready soon? Who knows?
If it isn't, again, that's just like it's bad marketing. Like, why would you get people's hopes up that this game is coming this year? Like, what's the point of that? There's no reason to do that.
It's
so I feel like
mixed messaging, right? If it's not ready, why are you mixing the messages there? Again, shame on them.
People are thinking it's coming, and they're going to be disappointed now if it doesn't.
I've heard a lot of people say this before that ad. Now, I heard rumors from some people that are considered insiders and stuff saying that it is very ready. It could be coming out this year. Don't know.
Be huge.
It would be huge for them if it lands. If it lands,
of course.
Here's one thing I can guarantee that'll land this year: Forza. Forza will land. That's one. Turn 10 and Playground Games, when they make Forza and Forza Horizon, they're great. But again, people are tired of just Halo, Gears, and Forza. They want new IP.
Yeah, that doesn't push the narrative forward where people are confident about Xbox first party quality, because it's just, again, another Forza.
Oh, Hargeet's got him in Discord. Oh, good. Thank you, Hargeet. Appreciate you, brother. I'm going to look that up right now. I guess he's got the super chats I missed. Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Okay, I've got one here from Expose 30. He says Phil is king, and Zocker is a toddler. Yeah, Zocker 87 is a toddler. That guy. Danny Passion Official said Hi-Fi Rush, Starfield, Forza, and Hellblade 2 in 2023. That would be great. That would be great. But we just have to make Starfield and Hellblade 2 land. We have to make them great games. That's what Xbox needs to say to themselves right now. Because Hi-Fi Rush is a great game. It's a great indie title. Like, it's great for what it is.
Hi-Fi Rush to me is one of the best games released this year, from an entire, like, the overall package that it has. There's like zero bugs essentially. It's extremely creative. The gameplay is a lot of fun, and the story is
yeah. Good. You know what's funny about it is I don't like rhythm games like that, and I don't like these type of games typically. But I thought it was a really good game. I was impressed. I was like, well, wow, and no bugs. That was a shocker.
No bugs.
Andrew Green thank you very much for the $5 super chat. He says, I'm not sure why everyone keeps going on about Sony outselling Xbox consoles. Don't Xbox care more about MAUs?
They do.
They do.
They absolutely do.
They do, 100%. I think, I've got one here for Fires71. Thank you very much. He just sent a super. Appreciate you, bro. He sent another one here, and he says, Fonz, you're the GOAT. No, you are, Fires. You are. You're amazing. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I don't know. Got anything else to say on June 11th? What would you like to see on June 11th?
It has to be an incredible show. I feel like every year we say that Xbox, this is the most important show ever for them. It seems like the last 3 years I've said that, and again this time more so than ever it is. But what do I want to see? I think like I do want to see gameplay of games that have been announced. Like that is the main thing I want to see. Everything else was great. Like they got to make Game Pass announcements. They have to give us a glimpse a little bit into the future. But I want to see gameplay to try to. I think it's important to show gameplay of like maybe a Fable, of Perfect Dark if it's ready, Hellblade, of course, Vowed, all these games, to try to restore some confidence in the community that these games are being worked on, they're in the pipeline, and they are looking good. Because that right now, that is the biggest issue when it comes to Xbox. It's people's lack of confidence in their first party output.
Yeah. 100%, man. I agree with you. They have to show those games that they've talked about. I really, really want to see Avowed so bad.
Yeah.
That one is probably the one game on my list that's like at the top of my list for Xbox. Because again, Obsidian, loved what they do, and the RPGs, everything. But it's kind of like an Elder Scrolls type looking game almost, you know? From what we've seen so far and heard about. So I'm looking forward to that whole fantasy genre. We need more of that in our games, because right now it seems like we're not getting a lot of those fantasy type games. Those fantasy RPGs.
There's that one coming from EA. I forget what it's called. Something Avium, which looks pretty cool. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Avowed, but that one looks pretty cool too.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. But yeah, I think they should just, show these games and show them running on a Series X, be transparent on exactly how they're going to run on this console. And also, I think we're going to see Hellblade 2. I think we'll finally see some real good gameplay on Hellblade 2. I think they'll show that. Like, because the gameplay that they showed, yes, it was in-game, but all she did was like throw a spear and run, right?
When you see real combat.
Yeah. That looked great too. Don't get me wrong. That was some of the most incredible video game footage I've seen, where she throws that spear at that big giant and she runs away. It looked really good. From a graphic standpoint, amazing. But I want to see more gameplay because Hellblade 1 wasn't my thing. I'll be honest. I didn't care for Hellblade. Honestly, I was kind of bored with it.
I'm with you with that. I wasn't a big fan of Hellblade 1. I got bored pretty fast with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Mainly due to it was like too many like weird puzzles and just walking a lot, and then not enough combat. And the combat that they did have wasn't very good.
Wasn't great. No.
It was serviceable. Kind of like the gameplay on Redfall. Serviceable. Legendary Drops, thank you very much for the $5. Ian, he says, build a PC. How about you give me like 3,500 so I can build that ultimate rig? Then I'll do it. How about that? Because Xbox is Play Anywhere, but don't tell the rabid fanboys that, because they think that Starfield, if it's 11 out of 10, it could surpass Sony. That's all they got to do. So weird. Mark from the Just Gaming podcast, thank you very much for the 5. Says just build a PC. Okay. You know what? Shut up, guys. You guys are PCMR. Get the F out of here, I say. No. No, that's it, guys. That's the show today. I had a great time. Hopefully you did too, Plume. I hope we explained things enough for some people out there. I'm sure we didn't, because there's always going to be naysayers and people, calling us bots and stupid things like that. But anyways, tell everybody where they can find you, Plume.
Yeah, no, I had an awesome time. I hope people can understand a little bit more what Phil Spencer said, but I'm with you. They probably won't. You can find me on Twitter at Plume Network or the Big Plume, and then YouTube as well as Plume Network.
Yeah. And with that, everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you to all my chat that was here today. We had like 300 and something people here. Amazing. I sometimes I can't believe how many people I get in here to watch my old ass talk about a video game or the industry. It amazes me. And I really thank you guys. You guys are amazing people to show up. Some of you every week. It really is just something that I can't fathom. Like, really, thank you. I started YouTube and I was like, nobody's going to want to hear from me. And then people did. And Plume, you've been on this YouTube ride for a while too. And it's great to see how far you've come too. You're just getting bigger and bigger. Keep doing your thing, man. I really love seeing what you do. It's awesome. Even when I don't agree with you, I still respect your points and how you come across and how you give them, because you make a lot of sense. You know, you're not some guy who just talks a lot of nonsense for the console war's sake. And I appreciate that. Appreciate guys like you.
I appreciate that too.
All right. So anyways, with that said, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for watching after the fact and listening on podcast streaming platforms out there, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, all that stuff. Thank you very much. Until next time, guys, game on.